What's up? What's up? What's up? I am back. It is a beautiful sunny California day. I have no makeup. My hair is a hot mess, but I swear I have never felt better. So, today we are talking about a highly requested topic on Instagram, and that is why avoidants get married. So, I have done some shorts on this, but it's such a complex topic. I couldn't go into the detail that I wanted to go into because hashtag it's a short. So I figured let's make a video and let's really get into it. So, first of all, if you are watching this video because this has happened to you, I want to tell you first and foremost, I empathize with you. I was that girl. I have watched my partner go on to marry the next woman, and I've also been the woman that they married. So, and it's so funny because when you actually get beyond the pain of the relationship and you get to see it for what it is, there is no real flex in being the one that they married. The real flex is in being the one that they walked away from. If you are new here, my name is Megan. I am the love conscious coach. And today we are talking about avoidants who marry, or the avoidant that marry the person right after you. So I totally get it. You see them, they marry someone that is nothing like you, maybe not even their style, maybe they didn't even know them. And you are the one that was patient, you were perfect, you were all of the things, and it does not make sense why they did not choose you. So, I want to talk about more so on what that means about them and what it doesn't mean about you. So, from the beginning, I know that we know what avoidant attachment is, but just in case I have someone who doesn't, avoidant attachment is an attachment style that strongly values independence. So, what does that look like? In a relationship, the avoidant is going to be the one that will shut down anytime there's any kind of emotional talks, whether it be happy or sad. Maybe it's an on and off relationship, could potentially be an avoidant narcissist, which I also have experienced, and that is brutal on your mental health, by the way. It could also look like the person who is just unsure of you. Avoidance play out in a different ways. I'm sorry, avoidance play out in different ways. But I want to specify more so that when we think about avoidant attachment, it's not just all of the things that they're doing. It's the intention behind the things that they are doing. So when we talk about someone who is unsure of you or whatever, that could easily be someone who is securely attached as well. You know, like securely attached people question the people that they're dating also. But when you have someone who is unsure of you because they have issues with intimacy, well, now they're avoidant. And I also want to clarify that when I'm speaking about avoidance, this is not a one size fits all. I am referring to dismissive avoidance. Fearful avoidants are very different. Yes, they marry, but they have anxiety playing out as well. Dismissive avoidants have anxiety playing out, but it's completely different. Dismissive avoidants actually crave intimacy. They actually crave closeness. The only issue is that they feel uncomfortable with it. I want to add in that avoidants don't realize that they crave intimacy because they're so busy trying to escape relationships. But deep down inside, avoidants are always looking for that one person that they feel is going to break the cycle. And they also believe that they have a one person that is for them, their one true love. So they're also subconsciously looking for that. They're actually scared of the vulnerability that is required whenever you're in connection with someone. So, whenever that vulnerability starts to show up, that is when the avoidant will start to give space to the relationship, or they will just all out in the relationship. And that is what we call an avoidant discard. And by the way, that vulnerability is normally found in high intense relationships. So while you may be in this situation and you feel like you all are on the fast track to marriage, what is really happening is the avoidant is uncovering some buried childhood wounds through the mirroring of the emotional availability of which you are giving. So anyway, let's first talk about why the avoidant didn't choose you. Now, I was the girl that the avoidant didn't choose, like I said. And when an avoidant doesn't choose you, it's actually probably one of the best things that can happen, because stop and think about the way avoidants show up in a relationship. Like when we think about relationships and the healed versus the unhealed, avoidants are kind of just there. Like, I don't ever want to shame one attachment style over another because none of this starts with us. But I kind of look at avoidance as like low hanging fruit, where it's just like they don't really want the relationship, but they want the connection. So when an avoidant doesn't choose you, you may be pushing them to grow faster than what they feel comfortable. You may be more emotionally open than they originally expected. But if you are anxiously attached, 9 times out of 10, the growth that was required to be with you felt threatening to them because anxiously attached people kind of move on a fast track. It's date one and the wedding is the second date. So if you are dealing with an avoidant, they pick up on that very quickly. Remember, they have anxiety and their anxiety plays out through through flight. So they are on the lookout while the anxious person is on the lookout for someone who's going to abandon them. The avoidant is on the lookout for someone who's going to enmesh with them. And unfortunately, the way that anxiously attached people show up in relationships, it puts the avoidant alert on high. So as the relationship continues to go on, there is a part of you that is subconsciously asking them to step up. It doesn't necessarily have to be verbally, but if you are being more emotionally open, if you are doting on them and doing all these nice things, if you're planning the vacations, if you have an outlook towards the future, you're not actively saying, hey, I need you to step up because emotionally my needs aren't being met, but you're kind of implying it because you're doing more in a relationship where the person actively knows that they are doing less. And I really want you to hear that. Avoidants know when they are doing less because many times what avoidance will do to avoid having to hurt your feelings. God, I feel like I'm going to overuse the word avoidant, but it is what it is. We're here. But sometimes what avoidance will do to avoid having those difficult conversations with you, especially ones that require like the ending of a relationship, is instead of ending things with you, they start doing less and less and less in hopes that you will actually end it with them. So when you don't end it with them, what happens is they actually start to slowly resent you. And that resentment that they build towards you is the very resentment that will keep them from ever showing up as the person that you want them to. Now let's talk about why the avoidant would choose the other person. So we know why the avoidant wouldn't choose you, but why the next person? Well, think about it like this, and this is the most common reason for avoidants who immediately get married. They've known this person a month, this person is nothing like you, and all of a sudden they're on their way down the aisle. This happens because off of the back of this relationship that they were in with you, they are emotionally like, oh my God, this person required so much. I'm exhausted. I can't believe they wanted all of this from me. I just have to get out of this situation. And then the moment they get out of it, they jump into something new and it immediately feels easier. Not necessarily that it is easier, but it immediately feels easier. Why? Because they don't have the pressure of a committed relationship. So, because they are feeling the contrast of being in the relationship with you long term, you being emotionally open, you wanting to progress the relationship to now this new person who's probably going to want the same stuff, but they don't know it yet. They're like, oh my God, it's so new here and they don't want anything from me. And you know what? I said I wanted a connection. This is probably as good as it's going to get. I don't have to grow with this person. I don't have to do all of the things that the other person, my ex, required me to do. I don't like change. Yep, let's go ahead and marry this person. And that's what they do. That's why they get married. So when you see an avoidant that has seemingly gotten married so quickly right after you all broke up and you can't understand why, it is because they were trying to find a way. I mean, obviously, it could also be because they're trying to suppress their feelings, but I like to think that marriage is that's too big of a commitment for someone who's just trying to detach. Like, that's not, I'm not saying that it's not possible. I'm just saying that if an avoidant goes out and marries, it is beyond them just trying to detach. You know, it is them truly trying to figure out what works for them. And mind you, trying to figure out what works for them when the whole time not realizing that it's them that's not working for them. But I digress. So not only are they coming off of the emotional high with you, and now they're in this new relationship that feels easier, they also feel less exposed. So with avoidance, it is normally never about you. And I just really want to make that very clear. It is never about you. If you are feeling pain, if you are feeling threatened, if you are feeling unsafe, if you are feeling anything undesirable in connection with an avoidant, just know that that's on you. They are not intentionally trying to inflict that. What they are trying to do is to protect their own safety and meet their own needs. The only issue is that they don't know what their needs are. So a lot of them meeting their own needs comes out as verbal abuse. It comes out as sometimes a verbal lashing. Maybe it's not full on verbal abuse, but they're not talking to you nicely. Or maybe they're so gun ho in their beliefs that you're having to deal with the wrath of all of their knee jerk reaction. When an avoidant starts behaving in this manner, that is an avoidant that feels exposed, and they are trying their best to avoid that. So when they move on to another relationship, they it could also be because they don't feel as exposed. Now, I'm going to keep reiterating this because I feel like I need to repeat this, especially for anyone who is feeling some pain from an avoidant that has moved on. That all of the things that an avoidant may think that the other relationship is going to offer them, it is only a matter of time that they will realize that that relationship ain't shit either. I'm sorry. That was so mean. It's not that the relationship ain't shit, it's that they ain't shit. I mean, in relationships, they could be very nice people. And usually avoidants are the likable people. People normally gravitate towards them. But in relationships, they ain't shit. And they keep thinking if they replace one relationship with another relationship, then, oh, this is the perfect fit, just to find out that it's not. And without the reflection, they never actually put two and two together to realize that it's not the relationships, it's actually me. Or let's just say they find out or they realize it is them. Well, then they'll just say, I don't want to grow. I don't want to do any work because having to do work, having to grow is going to involve them having to face the parts of them that they're not ready to deal with. Another reason that an avoidant may marry someone else is because avoidants settle. So I made a video about how avoidants settle. And of course, my comments on TikTok were flooded with what you're describing as women and blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you something. Avoidance can be women too. So it's not a matter of which gender settles, it is a matter of your attachment style. And avoidants do settle. They settle for the ones that they think are not going to require any growth. Anxiously attached people just find themselves stuck in these relationships. Now, I'm not saying that anxiously attached people aren't settling either, but there is a part of anxious attachment where they actually feel like the avoidant is the perfect person. They feel like this is the one that they're supposed to be with. When you feel that way, there is no real feeling of settling. Avoidance will marry someone thinking that this is the person I know will not require too much of me. Do you see the difference there? One actually feels like they found the prize. The other knows that they didn't. And why do they do this? Because settling is comfortable, because settling is familiar. Avoidants don't like change because change requires a lack of control. And avoidants need to have control. And this stems from childhood. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but normally when you are raised in an environment where you feel like you have little to no control, then you become a complete control freak as an adult. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. But anyway, avoidants like to have control. And so whenever they're in a marriage with someone that they know, with someone who is predictable, well, then there's a certain amount of control with that. And this is in no way, shape, or form indicative of the person and who they are. This is more so about the fact that an avoidant does, there is a lot of risk when an avoidant is dating because they are constantly trying to find that person that is going to allow them to be hands on when they want and hands off when they don't. And then in some cases, and I talked about this before, when an avoidant feels like they are backed into a corner. The person got married, maybe they were in fear of losing their home. Maybe it was religious values, cultural values, pressure, from society, friends, whatever. An avoidant will get married when they feel like that they are being backed into a corner. Now, the only issue is that while they may walk down the aisle and the person is feeling like they won, the other person, the anxious, is like, I got them to commit. The only issue is what is marriage? Marriage requires vulnerability. And this is where that, I don't want to say this is where that saying comes from, but this is where I think that saying comes from when they say that there's something about signing that paper where people just change. The only people who change are people who are insecurely attached because signing that paper is a signage of vulnerability. Like in marriage, it's like, oh my God, let me tell you, my avoidant, oh my God, sorry, my avoidant ex husband, he left me the night we got married. He also left me 2 days after I gave birth to our child. Now, young Megan was heartbroken and losing her shit. But Megan now understands marriage and babies equal vulnerability. Of course, he left then. And that brings me to my next point, of which I want to talk about. Just because an avoidant gets married, it does not mean that they are happy, nor does it mean that they are committed. When an avoidant gets married, it actually looks more like an illusion of commitment. Because as I was telling you, avoidants are normally the likable people. They may suck at relationships, but when it comes to life, they are normally the ones that are outgoing and charismatic and the ones that people tend to be drawn to. And that's what makes it that much easier to keep up the illusion of a happy marriage. But just know that when an avoidant gets married, it's all surface level stuff. Like they're not going to allow much emotional depth because that's not what they do, no matter what the relationship dynamic is. The real question that you should be asking yourself is the way that this person showed up in a relationship with you, do they really have what it takes to sustain the intimacy that is required within a marriage? Because at the end of the day, marriage is just marriage. And if you are not actively putting in the work and wanting to make this marriage work and to move it further along, then you really have nothing more than a glorified boyfriend, girlfriend. I really want to add to that you don't even have a glorified boyfriend or girlfriend because even in these types of relationships, there's some amount of work required. What you really have is a glorified associate. And I know that sounds harsh, but you really have to keep things in perspective. So, as I started out this video saying that the real flex is being the one that the avoidant walks away from, that is because I love illustrations. So, as we were talking about avoidance being the low hanging fruit, well, if you're someone who's like emotionally open, someone who wants commitment, someone who wants emotional depth, then you're basically asking them to jump up to your level. And well, avoidants don't normally do that. They like to stay right here and they will rock with you as long as you're right here with them. But the second you're not here with them, they ain't rocking with you no more because they don't have the energy, the time, the patience, or the emotional availability to do what it takes to work to get up here with you. So I want to start out by saying that when an avoidant chooses to not continue a relationship with you, that does not mean anything about you not being enough or you not being good or you not being their perfect person. You probably were their perfect person. And that's probably the reason why they did not choose you. What happened is you were likely reflecting back the childhood wounds within them so deeply that they could not deal with that. They did not want to go through the growth that would be required to continue that relationship. And that's why I said that when an avoidant leaves you, once you get beyond the pain, there is such a flex in knowing that an avoidant was like, oh no, this person's way too advanced. I can't keep up. Because the moment an avoidant feels like they can keep up with you, that is the moment you really need to be going within and be like, okay, what the hell is unavailable within me? You were not being rejected by the avoidant. What was happening was the avoidant was rejecting the parts of them that were necessary to grow in an attempt to be with you. And that is the difference. Moving on from an avoidant discard or a relationship that needs to come to an end is going to be you reclaiming your own self worth and not allowing someone else to dictate how you feel about yourself. How do you do that? You start doing the inner work. And as a chronic, I'm ugly, I'm not attractive, I'm not successful, everybody's doing better than me, that was me. I'm here to tell you that until you become aware of these thoughts that are happening in your mind, then they're going to continue to play out in your reality. So if you are over giving, over pleasing, chasing behind someone who has left you, then that is a sign of your own emotional unavailability. Because if you were emotionally available, you would not be chasing unavailable love. And I'm going to be real with you. I just walked away from someone who was basically perfect on paper. They were all of the things, but it didn't feel right for me, you know? And there is so much power in walking away from something that you know probably could have made you happy, but it wouldn't have made you as happy as you know is possible. And that is how you reclaim your power. Stop allowing situations and people to push you out because you didn't get the hint. You know, I was that girl too. I never just actively walked away from something that was no longer serving me. I had to be physically pushed out. It happened like that when I left Florida. It happened like that in my relationships. Like that was who I was. And there is so much power that you are giving away when you refuse to let go. When you are able to really hone in the art of detachment, you reclaim a lot of that power that you once gave away. And as you reclaim that power, when I tell you life starts showing up different, ooh, I have never been happier. I have never been happier. I have never been more powerful. I have never been in more control. I have never had more fun. And that is what it looks like when you stop allowing dusties to wreck your mental health. When you stop chasing behind unavailable love, you then become available to yourself. And you will see the people that you attract will be so completely different. There are strange things happening in this universe that are beyond my comprehension and more than what I can explain. But when I tell you there is something about going within that just completely changes the trajectory of your relationship status, your relationship life, it is a real thing. There are people who sign up with me, and we have just started doing the work, and they've already met someone that is totally different from who they're normally dating, totally different from what they would normally go after. And I actually know of a few, they're still together. This isn't because I'm so magical. Yes, I am. I'm so magical. But no, it's actually the energetic frequency that you are giving out. When you give out the energy of, I want to show up for myself, I am committed to being loved so that I can have the love that I seek, then that message is resounding. And it shows up through people, it shows up through little synchronicities, it shows up in various ways, especially if you are looking for them. So I know, as cliche as it sounds, oh, you just have to do the work, you just have to go within. Going within is what literally saved my life. And I'm not even joking. Now, that shit is painful because you're going to be, there's a reason why we were avoiding all of these things to begin with. But once you finally get over it, these things no longer have control over you. You're able to talk about these harmful, probably the most painful things that you've ever experienced, and you're no longer crying. And you're not crying because you're numb. You're not crying because you're healed. And that is the difference. Healing is what is going to allow you to shift the focus to those that actually like you. If you are ready to do the work, then please check the link in the description box. I have my love hack. It is on sale right now. And it is going to uncover those hidden blocks that you have in love so that you can finally have and maintain the relationship that you are looking for. If anything in this video resonated with you, please drop it in the comments. I do actively check my comments and I do try to respond as much as I possibly can. But I would love to hear from you and what your experience is with avoidant to marry, because I know we all have a different avoidant story. Yeah, we all have a different avoidant story. My name is Megan. I am the Love Conscious Coach once again. And until next time, I will see you later.